I felt like I was like managing going into Kona. So like and I think that's why I was so emotional too on the other finish line, because I was going into a world championship knowing that this hasn't been anything but perfect.
Welcome to Fuel In Sessions, the podcast that delves into the science of nutrition. Powered by Fuel In, the AI nutrition app that makes nutrition simple, personalized, and adaptive for anyone who exercises and wants to improve their health and performance. We will share expert insights, training tips, strategies, and hopefully some laughs so you can fuel your best and reach your full potential. I am your host, Scott Tyndall, and today I am once again joined by one of my favorite pro athletes, Holly Lawrence. Holly, welcome.
Hey, yeah, back.
How you doing?
Yeah, good. Just came off of a week of kind of downtime after Kona and then slowly getting back to it now.
Yeah, well, Kona, we're going to talk about it. Firstly, congratulations. I thought today's episode, obviously it's episode 4 of Road to Kona. You got to Kona, you conquered Kona, and it was very exciting. And, you know, we're going to dive into Kona, which was ultimately your first world championship. You came 6th, just 12 months after giving birth to Poppy, 8 months after a sacral stress fracture, 6 months after returning to running, and only your second Ironman. And I think all that is pretty impressive. So I'm looking forward to getting into it today. And you know, I'm really looking forward to hearing your insights, learning what your build was like after Lake Placid, your late arrival onto the island and why, heat prep, covering your race week from a nutrition perspective, including your carb load and, of course, your race nutrition. So you ready?
Yeah, that's a lot to get into.
Don't worry, we'll rip through it. So, yeah, let's just start with how you're feeling. How did it all? Yeah. How are you feeling since the race?
Yeah, good. I mean, I'm obviously stoked. Like, I didn't know how the first year of going to Kona would go. I kind of had high hopes to begin with, but obviously then, you know, the realities of having a baby and, you know, like you said, fracturing my sacrum and everything. So like all in all, like, yeah, I'm really happy with it. And it's definitely not scared me off now for the future. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm really wanting to have another crack at this next year. So yeah, it's good.
Well, it's quite, I think the first thing I said to you, I was like, never again. And you were like, no, like I'm in.
Yeah. And I think that's definitely probably what happens with people that are doing Ironman and like, yeah, you then go, okay, well, there's a lot of things I can clean up there and be a bit better and with a better build, whatever. And yeah, you're like, what would that pan out? So yeah, lots of learnings and excited for next year.
If you talk about those learnings, like lessons you take from Lake Placid that you took into the build into Kona, what would they have been?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously spoke pretty open after Lake Placid that like it just my expectations going in and then after it, like I really don't think I had a good hold of what an Ironman was going to really entail, like both like emotionally and mentally as much as physically. And like, you know, I've always thought I've been good at like the little things, but they become way more important. I've been really on it and like rehearsing everything and like, yeah, just the mental side being just so big and staying in it when things don't go your way, because that can happen like way on such much bigger scale in Ironman, and like you've got so much of the race still ahead of you. So yeah, it was like interesting. Like I was really kind of sat down after Placid on my butt. I felt like kind of like, okay, I'm not sure if that really hurt mentally as much as physically, and I'm really not sure if I could do that again. But you know, Sean was the real, you know, driving force. And they're like, no, you said you were going to do this. You really got to follow through. And I was kind of a bit sheepishly like, okay, well, maybe I'll just do Kona and then I'll be done. But no, I feel like it was going into Kona just like really, really took the expectations off me. And I was just like, I just want to execute as best as I can, but without all the external pressure that I was putting on myself like beforehand. And I think it's just like generally anyway racing, but like so much more during an Ironman. Um, and now I like really credit even the people I'm racing against that I felt like I had no idea what they were going through. That like they're just like very mentally strong to be able to do this and do it well and have bad performances, good performances, and everything, and just
Well, you definitely looked. I looked at some of the photos from Placid, and then I looked at the photos in Kona, and you definitely had far more smiles on your face
yeah.
at Kona that I saw. It was the general feeling you were just a lot happier in Kona racing there.
Yeah, I was. I mean, I feel like I just did a lot of like internal work, being like, I want to, like, obviously, I'm not going to be like smiling the whole time. There's going to be times that you panic. There's going to be times when you're like, wow, this is really hard. But I was like, this is going to be how I make it. And so that was like really the focus for me. And I was like, I'm going to use everything that this race is, all the people around me, and like actually like use it to my benefit instead of being like the opposite, like, oh, they're seeing me in this terrible time. Yeah.
No, it's great. It's great. Well, let's go back to something that I picked up on as well. Obviously the build into Kona, there was a lot of social media activity going on, and you were pretty absent at the start of the week, notably that, and everyone made a big deal about you arriving onto the island. I think you arrived Wednesday afternoon. Is that right? Sort of Wednesday
Yeah, yeah.
afternoon. And a lot of people made a lot of noise about this, going, oh, you're just sort of rocking up now. Do you want to just explain why you did that and what the reasoning was?
Yeah, so honestly, it was like since we moved to Boulder at altitude, everything, the guidance for altitude is typically, fly and race within 3 days, or you come down and race 10 days, or more. Some people don't feel like they're affected by it. Fine. I feel like I am. The few races I've done, like early on when we moved to Boulder, I really was affected by it. So we now just either within 3 days or more than 10. And I just didn't want to be there with all the buzz and, too much kind of craziness too long. And my daughter was turning 1 that weekend. So we had a little party. So it was, just like, it was just what we decided. And honestly, I feel like it panned out super well. I kind of liked the idea that people just presumed I wasn't racing. But yeah.
I mean, it's interesting because, like, I think back to the conversation I had with Dr. Lindsay Hunt. And talking to Alan McCubbin as well about like heat preparation and, talking about like, is that environment, being out in that environment, is it enough? Because I know a lot of people go out to Kona early because they think it's going to help with that heat acclimation. And the reality is it may not actually be enough of a stimulus to provide any real physiological benefit. And you were mentioning as well, the week leading in was pretty horrendous in terms of crosswinds and wind, and actually not being able to do some quality training. Do you want to just elaborate on that a little bit as well, and what your thought process was around that?
Yeah, I mean, also it's not like the best place to train. Especially during the week, like when I did like the race sim kind of thing a couple of weeks out, I did the long ride on the weekend when traffic's a bit lighter. You don't have the huge like articulating lorries bombing down the highway, which is making like the winds and like way worse, because it'll be like a crosswind. They'll be kind of like blocking the wind, and then you'll suddenly get it in one go. So it's like it makes it a bit. And like, I really just didn't want to have a bad experience race week and be caught up doing too much in the heat, which it obviously still is a factor. Like, yeah, when I did the race sims, I didn't get any heat stress during the bike, but then I did obviously on the long run that I did. So I just feel like the tendency to overdo it. And I was just like going into Kona and being like, I am going the opposite way of overdoing this. I'm underdoing this if there's any question.
Uh, yeah, well, it turned out all right, I think. So
Yeah,
it's really interesting though, because I think a lot of people will probably look at that and maybe listen to this and go, okay, well, what is the optimal timing to go out to Kona, and is it required to actually be out there for a long time? I guess there's so many factors around, like your total flight time from Boulder, it wasn't too bad. I guess we did talk about, would you do something different? Would you potentially go down to San Diego or LA maybe before 10 days, 2 weeks
Yeah, I mean,
before, and maybe do a camp there?
yeah, that's what I discussed with you a couple of days ago, that would be my kind of only thinking, if I redid it. And then I'd like travel a couple of days earlier, because then obviously, like, I was following that air tag on my on my phone as I was sat on the plane, being like, please, please put this bike on the plane, because you're just like up to the wire a little bit. So it's
Yeah,
little things like that. Like, all went smoothly, but
yeah, that's probably some stress you don't need. Some stress that you did need, though, if we talk about, and we talked just briefly then about heat acclimation and heat prep. How did you manage that leading in? We'd obviously had conversations around that. You and Sean had ideas around it. In terms of your heat preparation, active or passive, which one did you tend to use?
mostly active. We have still a greenhouse downstairs in the garage over the top of my treadmill and bike trainer, so I'd put a bike on there. But I still would have to overdress to get the heat stress, and it was more sustainable to do a bike workout because I could get like an hour and a half or whatever in like a good heat stress. But I found the running, it was a lot of heat stress, but it wouldn't really register as much heat stress, because one, you're not doing as much time, and I feel like there was a bit of a lag with a core sensor because you're increasing your heat so rapidly, because you're just not dissipating heat like you are in cycling, that then it was like a little harder to manage, I felt like, with running. But then it was like a good from a perception thing, that was like, oh my gosh, this is like a really like high perception of heat and dealing with it.
In terms of total amount of that active heat prep, how many weeks did you do, and how long were the average sessions that you were doing on the bike?
I would have to go back and look, but I think it was like 3 or 4, maybe 4 or 5 weeks of it. It was like over a long period of time, and I really wasn't making much gains early on because I almost like wasn't doing it as frequent enough. But because I gave myself so much time, that then, like, because I was just using the core sensor in the app, and it gives you like a percentage of like heat adapted, and there's like adapted, and then like there's past adapted to, I don't know, whatever they call it, but that's what I was kind of like going up to. And I think it was, I don't know, like nearly 90% by the time Kona week was.
Yeah. I think when we looked at it, I think, and it's definitely something I think that can be refined for the next season, and maybe where you do, a specific block of heat prep and then have limited sort of sessions throughout the week. So reduces that total load on you. And I think it's just something to play around with. You obviously did very well with your heat adaptation, I think, as demonstrated by your performance on the bike and the run, and managing the heat well. So I think it's like all these things. I think there's definitely an individual aspect to it, and how it fits into your training block and your training cycle as well, that you and Sean have.
Yeah. I mean, that is the tough part of it, because like, obviously you're trying to get your sessions in, but then heat stress is, the heat training is actually like quite stressful. So the thought of doing it like every day, like sometimes it was on my plan and I just was like, well, I'm not doing it today, because I'm like, I'm really trying not to overcook myself. Like I felt like I kind of overcooked myself going into Placid. So it was just hard to manage that way. But then I felt like I just like really stayed true to myself then, and really like followed my own instinct.
Yeah, look, I you can look at the research papers on this, and as Lindsay and I talked about, like, it is very difficult for an athlete to find the time where they feel like fully committed to that heat prep of 5 continuous days, then a short break, then 5 more continuous days. And where does that fit in? And is your strategy, and I don't think there's any hard and fast rules, and there certainly hasn't been the research doing what you did, where you did consistent heat training, but with gaps in between. Is it as effective? Maybe, maybe not. it worked for you. Can it be maybe manipulated for the future? Yeah, I think so, and play around with that. And I think it's one of those. It's like in the box I put of like, okay, it worked. Can it be maybe tweaked and done better? Yeah, maybe. And I think that's something to play around with for next season, which is cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, race week nutrition. I guess something going into Placid. I think with your cycle, you had, I think you had your period going into Placid as well, if I'm not mistaken. Where were you
Yeah.
in terms of your menstrual cycle phase going into Kona? Because I
Yeah,
think
I
you'd
mean, it was,
mentioned as well, it was predicted to actually happen. Your period was predicted to happen on the day of the race.
oh, it was like a day before. So then, like, obviously, the month before, I'm like, okay, I'm a day early. Okay, come on, like, I was really willing it because it was like within 28 days, 29 days. It's like very regular, but like within a day, it could be. Um, so yeah, luckily, I felt like I was over the hump a little bit more with Kona than I was with Placid, but I was also like, well, whatever happens, I'm just not even gonna and I try and be that way anyway, like really not try and let it affect me. So yeah, luckily I feel like it didn't too much, but I
So
was
how many,
prepared
it
for
was
it.
the day before?
No, it was like 2, 3 days before, so I felt like I was kind of over that worst part of it.
Yeah, it's interesting because we did a post actually on Instagram, which was it was called the 10 Commandments of Female Fueling, and it caused a little bit of controversy, which probably the
Oh,
point of
really?
it. And there were some female dietitians who came at me pretty hard, saying that point 0.5 was like the menstrual cycle can't be reliable for fueling, and what we were saying with that was, based around this concept of cycling, manipulating your nutrition based on your menstrual cycle is what we're saying. We weren't saying that the menstrual cycle isn't important in terms of how it makes a female feel. And like, as you've said, like, all the time we know that it's, you have these period where you're like, not period, but you have this feeling of like, I don't feel my
Yeah,
best. And then you as an individual athlete have to, deal with that, as you said. And I think psychologically you've put yourself in this position of like, effort. It is what it is. Like, I need to get on with it. And that's your approach. And it's not going to work for every female athlete, but certainly that's from what I've, gathered working with you over the years, that's sort of your approach to it.
yeah. I mean, I just never wanted to be like, oh, my period's this date. Oh, I won't perform well. Like, in the end of the day, like, I know athletes like that, and like I've just always told myself that I wouldn't be like that,
Yeah.
because I just
And
think there's a lot of things you can do. I think there's and if you went around, like, obviously planning your nutrition around your cycle, well, then are you going to plan your training around your cycle? And then it's the same thing. Well, oh, you take it easier normally during your period or whatever, and then, well, if a race falls on it, then you're going to even be more thrown off by it, because in every month you adapt for it. So then now you're like not used to that. So I just think, for me, I just have to be like, it's just something that happens, and I can perform well both, on or off.
yeah, and I think, for yourself, and I think for a lot of women who have that approach and understand the limitations it may place on you psychologically and physiologically, you manage it in your own way. And if we talk about that, did you change anything going into race week, say on the Monday before the race being on the Saturday? Did you change anything, from I don't feel like this type of food, or I'm not going to eat this food, based on how you were feeling?
No, I mean, I eat pretty much like very similar most of the time. There's nothing that I feel like. I just feel like if there's anything that I adapt around my cycle, it's like before, just the couple days before, and when I'm bleeding, usually I'm like very sensitive to salt for some reason. I'll like tend to get puffy. So I'll just, not go crazy on like salting my food or something. But generally yeah.
Um, yeah, it is interesting. A lot of females will report that sort of fluid retention in and around their period, and your strategy of reduced sodium load seems to help and seems to, you always talk
Yeah.
about your fingers and rings, isn't it? That's how you
It's
know.
like it's like really barely get off. Yeah. And it's like one thing I didn't think about, I think it was a race in San Fran. I don't know which one it was, but I've been in this scenario like most of the year for some reason. It's like been falling on the same kind of period. And I'd eaten at a takeout place. It was like a Thai, like rice and like a chicken lard, which is like, you know, fine, but it was like so salty. And I remember thinking during it, and then I woke up in the morning in my hands, and I'm like, oh no, I can't even take my Oura ring off. So I just like was drinking obviously water to try and like flush
Flush it
things
out.
out. Yeah.
In terms of fiber, you mentioned sodium. What about fiber? Like, when do
Oh
you
yeah.
actively start thinking, okay, I'm going to reduce fiber? How many days before?
I mean, pretty much now the week before I'll start coming down, which I never used to. I mean, years ago I would be eating broccoli like the night before. But especially in an Ironman, I feel like even if you haven't had any digestive issues, like it's a good way to go.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Again, there's no hard and fast rules. I mean, generally speaking, we will typically at Fuel In will recommend sort of at least 2 to 3 days before starting to reduce. And then I think there's that individual, variability and what the preference is. And as you say, like that has been something consciously you've changed over the last few years of reducing fiber on race week. And it works. It works for you. I'm not saying it works for everyone. Yet, and it's reduction of fiber in race week. I think that's the important thing. So many athletes think, oh, I've just got to reduce fiber all the time, and it's not. And I know you eat a heap of veggies and fiber all the time. So, if we talk about that race week, okay, so a little bit of reduction in fiber, sodium would have stayed. Did you reduce sodium consciously in that week, or were you just starting to think, okay, I've got to be drinking enough?
Yeah, just made sure I didn't like have a crazy amount of salt in like one meal or something, like, just not thinking about it.
And I think that's also part of the advantage of coming onto the island late, actually, because then you're in control of your meals. And I think that is always something that athletes have to contend with, is that, okay, you go somewhere very early on, you're eating out most of the time, unless you're in an Airbnb or an apartment where you've got cooking facilities, which is what I would always recommend if you can. But I think in that respect, it just gives you that little bit more control over that week's nutrition as well. Carb load. So going into, we actually set you up at around we had 48 hours of actually a carb load with you. And again, I know it's not always typical and not always what we recommend. It does depend, I think, on the individual athlete and things like power output and how fast you are. But certainly, going in from Lake Placid, it was like we purposely wanted to ensure carbs were on point. 48 hours, we did at least over 11 grams per kilo of carbs as an estimate. We did drop your protein down. Typically, you eat a lot of protein per day, up around the 160 grams per day, sort of that 2.5, 2.8 grams per kilo. We actually purposely dropped that down to around 100, 120 grams. And that's something, again, within the Fuel In program, we are starting to look at changing that in terms of the algorithm for those race days. And that's mainly to allow the athlete to get in the carbs, because it's very hard when you're eating a lot of protein, because protein is very satiating. So that's, I think, a move in the right direction. We kept your fat pretty low at around 60 grams or around 1 gram per kilo. I know we've talked about your carb load before. Your food of choice?
Rice.
Yeah. What did your mum? Was it your mum? Was it your mum who said something? Or?
Yeah, she was like, "What? Rice again?" Like, because I was just, rice for breakfast, rice for lunch, rice for dinner, and it like with peanut butter and jam, maybe some chicken at lunch, salmon at dinner. Just like putting it with things. But yeah, it's pretty boring. And I was like, you don't have to eat this way. Like, go eat something fun. But it's nice just.
It is funny when honestly, like, I think as a result of you and Jan and Kyle, and that's all I typically eat now as well. And it's sort of like been a self-experimentation, but it is funny the comments you get from people around you. They're like, you eating more rice? Like, seriously, haven't
Yeah,
you eaten enough? And you're like, no, not yet. I've still got,
yeah. And
another few cups.
always like the day before the race, you're like, I can't wait not to eat rice again. And then it'll be like 1 or 2 days after the race, and you're then like, oh yeah, I quite fancy rice. It's quite funny. And I
Yeah, I
really
think
eat rice at home, so
Yeah, I think your equivalent was just over 10 cups of rice as an average per day if it was just pure rice. So decent amount. And what was I going to say? I was going to say, yeah, it doesn't make for an interesting infographic on social media or on
yeah.
Instagram either. It's like breakfast rice, snack rice, lunch rice. And it's like, yeah, we got to mix it up a little bit. What else did you consume with it? Did you use any of I know you're sponsored by Z2 or Z2. Did you use some of their products to assist you with that total carb intake? Because it is a lot.
Yeah, I mean, when I'm out training, I'll just be using sports products, obviously. But yeah, I mean, mainly just eating rice, having like it's sweet or savory. It's like very easy, and
Yeah.
I like because it's got a lot of water content in it too. So like I just feel like it's the best carb to be doing it
Yeah.
with.
Yeah, no, I really like the rice. It just sits very well on you. Actually, you made a point there as well, and it was something that purposely we talked about was any of the training sessions you had, even if they were just light warm ups, we didn't want you effectively utilizing any glycogen or any carbohydrates. So even for those very short sessions, the advice was take on a gel, take on some drinks, even for that zone one, very light. And I think I personally would really recommend that to every athlete out there. I think as you said, you don't want to get caught up in the hurrah of the race week. And I see a lot of athletes going out, they're doing these really pretty full on sessions. And I know you didn't do that, but I would definitely recommend, even if you don't think you need a gel or a drink, take it with you. Just top up.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to do you any harm. So I think that was a really nice thing that we did.
Yeah.
If we go into the race, woke up in the morning, what happened?
I had rice. Although it's a lot harder. It's a lot harder to get it in for me race morning at the moment. For some reason, just coming back after pregnancy, every morning of race morning, I suddenly like struggle to eat my breakfast. And I'm there like, luckily I didn't gag this time, but I'm like, like chewing it and like giving Sean the eyes, like, oh God, this is really hard. Because I just feel like nauseous for some reason. It's just, yeah. I never had nausea during pregnancy, and I feel like now I'm getting it for some reason.
Yeah, it is very odd. I think we talked about this with after Lake Placid, and you were going to try some alternatives, some dry products. Did that come across
Yeah.
your plate?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even think about it for this because I was just like rice cooker, rice, ready. And that would have been something I would have had to forward think about because the selection of gluten-free breads in Hawaii was non-existent. So I would have had to fly with my bread somehow. And I don't know if they would even let me in because they're like really, concerned of what you bring in and what out. So maybe the seeds on bread also, I don't know. But yeah, for another race, I do want to trial race morning having like a bread or something.
Yeah, it makes sense. It is funny. I mean, the psychology of that, does that then play into it? Are you then now thinking, oh, am I going to get nauseous and all that? So, it may be something to explore into the new year and talk about that. But, you managed to get it in. You because of, you knew that getting in the total volume of rice was going to be difficult. So you supplemented that with some of the Z2 drink, the carb drink, which, we knew was going to give you an extra 80 grams of carbs and some sodium, which I think was a really smart strategy. What happened to your gear on race morning? Didn't something happen?
To my gear.
Power meter?
Oh yeah, my bike computer wasn't working in the morning, and I
So
was
what
like,
happened?
I'm not meant to know. It's great. I'm fine with this. And Sean was actually a bit like, you need to get this working. Like, go ask someone for a cable. Because like, I kind of knew a fix because it happened before. But I thought, oh, it hasn't happened, and well, it won't happen. And I kind of half-heartedly did try with someone who had like a portable thing. and then it didn't work. And I was like, don't push me on this. I feel good about it. So yeah, I was without anything on the bike, which was
So
freeing.
no heart rate monitor and no power meter, or you had the heart rate on?
I never wear a heart rate monitor just because. I mean, I wish there was like a device that I could like stick to my chest, but I hate having a restrictive heart rate monitor like running most of the time. So like
Have you
I'll wear it.
have you tried the arm one? The
Well, I
polar
have
arm
for
one?
PTO races, well, T100 races, but yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, I'd
I
rather.
like the one on the arm's good, I think. I like it. It doesn't
Yeah, but
feel.
swimming, I'd rather it not being there.
Yeah, but it's under your suit, so
Well, you probably don't swim that fast. So you
yeah, I
don't
don't swim that fast. It's definitely not going to come off with me.
does it bother you doing breaststroke?
When I'm doing backstroke, it sometimes get a bit floppy. Yeah. Between you and Jan. Okay, moving on. So you went all Daniela Reef, actually. Kona, no
Yeah,
power meter, no heart rate. I like it.
yeah,
Because I mean, I know when we talked about this, last week, it was like, I was like, ooh, that's good. But, you have such a good feel for your body and RPE and in touch with what you need to do on the bike and the run that, not a slave to the metrics. And I think that's pretty impressive. I think it's a really good takeaway from this that, for a lot of the athletes, younger and older, sometimes feel is just as powerful and can really make a big difference.
yeah. I mean, the only wish I had was I could like analyze it after the fact. So if I couldn't have seen it during and then like so when I did the race sim out in Kona, I rode the whole time and I just had my map on the screen. I never looked at power. And like even sometimes I'd be like, oh, go and have a look at it. And I'm like, but what will you do with it? So I'm like, no, like let it be. And even like how many miles I've got left. It's nice because I feel like whenever I want to know, it's out of a panic driven like and so, like, when I have the answer, it's not going to help me. I'm only using it as like a beating stick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's great. It made me think, actually. I was like, you know what, you sit there, and I was talking to actually a coach the other day who does a lot of mental training for athletes, and that's sort of more what he's getting into. And it was like, are you actually in the moment? Are you feeling what's actually happening? And as opposed to just looking at your computer number and going, okay,
Yeah.
that's what it is. And it's like,
Am
how
I
are you?
am I not good? Yeah.
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 So I think it's something. Yeah. Would you put potentially? I had heard athletes putting like bike computers under their seat and stuff like that, so that they get the
Yeah.
information afterwards. They can retrospectively analyze it. Is there any value in it? I mean, end of the day, you have the race and you have your result, and that's it, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, I do wish I had it now to know, but
Just to see what you did, yeah. Yeah, I
yeah.
can imagine and especially I'm sure Sean wishes you had it so we could look at it.
Yeah. He was like, you need to deal with this now. And I'm like, now's not the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, now's not. I would not have liked to have been a fly on the wall for that conversation. Pre-race, usually 60 minutes before we have a final large carbohydrate top up, and we usually do caffeine. Kona, just explain what happened.
Yeah, so I just didn't have the caffeine gels because I was like I put the no dose pills, like the caffeine pills, in my bento and personal needs. You can't call it special needs. No, it wasn't. It wasn't. It was in transition to run out of with my flask. And so I just that's something I like overlooked. And race morning, I was like, I don't want to take a caffeine pill just before the start because I haven't done that. And you have such like, it's when you're like anxiety is like peaked. I'm like, I just don't want that. Because I know I did a caffeine pill, I think, before Boulder a couple of years ago. And I felt that like antsiness in the swim. And I don't know if it was just altitude or whatever, but I was like, yeah, no, just in doubt. If in doubt, then no.
Yeah. I mean, look, and you felt that on the day, and I mean, we know that you can perform without caffeine or with caffeine, and I think that's,
But I'd had obviously like 2 coffees at least in the morning. Yeah.
Yeah. And we'll talk a little bit more caffeine because it did rear its head again during the race. 15 minutes before, you had your typical sort of 40-gram gel just going in, and there was no problems with that. The swim was fast, probably a lot faster than mine, as you've pointed out. And the swim, no GI issues, no swallowing water, anything like that?
Yeah.
Good.
No.
That's very good. And then you came in T1. The plan was to have some carbohydrates at T1 and just relax a little bit and just go through. How did T1 come this time compared to Placid? Did you have cameramen yelling at you saying, slow down, Ollie?
Not this time. I was like saying that to myself. But I decided to put my helmet on my bike race morning. And like, if you've never seen the transition setup in Kona, it is so tight. So I was like umming and ahhing the day before when I was racking, and even like so I'm like, no, okay, I'm going to put it in the bag. Everyone's like, put it in the bag. So I walk all the way around, put it in the bag, and then I'm like, no, I'm going to put it back on the bike. And so I walk all the way, because they make you do the whole lap of transition. And they're like, no, you can't go back. And so I do. And then the referee's like clapping me for making a decision. Like, it was kind of a bit funny. And like the cameras are there and stuff. But yeah, so then just in the morning, my T1 bag, I just shoved my swim skin in it, my goggles, and then just like went to the bike. So it was no like taking stuff out of my bag or anything. So then I didn't take anything there. It was like straight on the bike.
Straight on the bike. And just so everyone understands your setup on the bike, how many bottles?
3 bottles, 2 up front on my bars, and then 1 behind me, and then no frame bottle.
And no frame bottle, which was a change. Because that was something we ummed and ahed about the setup and how you were going to do it. And, you talk about using the frame bottle, that aero bottle. And in the end, you went just one stacked, wasn't it? One on top of each other.
Yeah.
Between the handlebars and then the one behind. And in those bottles, just outline exactly what you had.
So I had the 3 scoops of the Z2 carb drink, which is like what their typical measure is, which is 80 grams of carbs, 750 milligrams of sodium. And that was like 3 bottles. And then I had 2 bottles. One was 80, one was 60, because I didn't even think about it. The whole 900 or kilogram bag of carb drink, I totally went through it all in making all my bottles, like the pre-race bottle, whatever. So I was like just shy, but then that was just in my personal needs bag, which I was like not sure if I was going to take or not. I was going to see how the race dictated, but I did take it.
Yeah, and that's it was something that we discussed a lot, wasn't it? Are you going to use athlete needs? And you did decide to use athlete needs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so you picked up 2 fresh bottles, was it? Yeah, 2 fresh bottles there.
80 and 160 gram bottle.
Yeah. And then in combination with that, you use the Z2 gels.
Yeah.
And so
like 1 an hour.
Yeah, 1 an hour, I think, is what it worked out. And then in the back end, you had a couple of extras because you'd got through your bottles, your 4 bottles total. Caffeine, you planned on taking 2 no-dose pills of 200 milligrams each. You had the first one at around 45 miles. And then what happened to the second one?
And then the second one had totally disintegrated. So I was like dipping, using it as a dip dap, which is like, you probably don't know sweet in the UK. It's like the lollipop that you have the sugar on.
You stick the sugar on the stick.
Licking it, which it wasn't doing anything. I was like getting nothing. So that's something I learned for the future, that don't expect the pill that you put in there to still be there.
Yeah, we did talk about that for future, either putting it in a small little baggie, like Ziploc baggie, and probably having more than one, just in case you drop one even, or something happens.
Yeah.
Little things like that, just little backup. But only so, at this point in time, you'd had some coffee, but you only had 200 milligrams throughout the bike, which, again, learning, could that extra 200 milligrams of caffeine, certainly in the back end of the bike, I think based on what we know, I think it would have assisted performance. But, it is what it is.
I had such a big boost after the first caffeine pill that I was like, okay, when can I take the next one? Thinking like I'm really looking forward to it. And then I was really disappointed that I couldn't take it.
Now, obviously, the pill had disintegrated. At that point, did you, like, some athletes would potentially panic and be like, oh, shit, okay, I don't have caffeine. What was your mindset at that point in time? Because thankfully, you had planned for some caffeine on the run. Like, where was your head
Yes,
at?
I mean, fine. I just kind of laughed at myself really that it was,
All
um,
over the place.
yeah. So then, yeah, just knowing that, okay, I have the caffeine coming out of transition
Yeah.
and yeah. But then I was just kind of regretful that I didn't pack more on the run too, because I just took it when I was coming straight out of transition and then like probably could have done with it again. Because I typically do have a lot of caffeine and I'm very tolerant of caffeine. I'm like,
Mm.
I've done a test years and years ago about like, how quickly you metabolize caffeine. I'm like a super responder, quick metabolizer. It's like not really got any negative effects. So I'm very confident with taking high amounts of caffeine. Um, so yeah, I would have preferred
Yeah,
to.
I think your upper amount in terms of milligrams, if I'm not mistaken, I think you're placid. I think you're up around 7 or 8 milligrams per kilo.
Mm.
Milligrams per kilo, which it was, it is very high. It's on the upper end. And certainly, as a bolus, you're typically recommending around 3 milligrams per kilogram. So, for you around 180, 200. So, but multiple doses over that course of time, you tolerate it very well. Before we get onto the run, you took in a total of, and this is again, I'll say a total, but it's an estimation based on everything you did. You took in 520 grams of carbs, which averaged out at around 108 grams an hour. You took in just under 6.5 liters total, which was a equivalent of around just over 1.35 liters per hour, and an average of
Mm-hmm.
around 490, call it 500 milligrams per liter of sodium. Now at Lake Placid, you took in around 500. You actually took in a little bit more carbs total at Placid,
Mm.
but it was exactly the same grams per hour because you were a little bit slower. I think
Right.
you were faster in Kona than you were at,
Mm-hmm.
is that right? Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
that you took in a lot less fluid. So we're talking like nearly 2.5 liters less fluid total. Uh,
In Kona.
in You took in 2.5 liters more in Kona than you took in on Placid.
Mm-hmm.
So you took on an average around 800 mils per hour in Placid. And total sodium worked out, you actually took in more sodium milligrams per liter in Placid as well. And that makes sense. It was a lot cooler in Placid. It
Yeah.
was obviously raining on the day. So I think what was really nice looking at this is like we knew that you had to take in a lot more fluid in Kona because of the conditions. We knew that your sweat rate is actually pretty high, and you manage that extremely well with the bottle configuration, your ability to pick up water bottles on course, and then use athlete needs. And I think, like, honestly, that strategy and that strategic thought by you, I think had a massive impact on the run because you took in a lot of fluid to keep
Yeah.
to keep that stress level, the heat stress level down.
Yeah. I mean, I like now thinking back, I'm like, I could have taken more on the bike because as I was kind of coming in, I was like, oh, I'm feeling like just like I could do with a bit more water. But then what's really saved me is on the run, the pros were really lucky enough to have pro fluids, which there was 6 pro fluids stations, which was like every 3 miles. I mean, I can't do the math,
Yep.
but
No, it
probably a bit
was.
shy.
It was.
Um, so then that meant that I ran with a flask, like literally 100% of the time. I had a flask coming out of T1, so then I had T2, sorry, and I had 6 more to come. So I had 7 500 ml flasks with like 50 grams of carbs, bunch of sodium still. And so I was like always drinking out of that. And if it was just left to the aid stations and the cups, there's no way I would have got anywhere near the same amount of fluids.
Yeah, I mean, and again, we talked about this, but like, I think it was a really smart move and taking advantage of what the conditions had in terms of those aid stations. Like, you drank in a guaranteed 500 mil every 3 miles. Plus, you also were dedicated to taking in water whenever you could. We estimated that at around 200 mils. So, like, your total fluid intake as an estimation was around 1.5 liters per hour. Yeah, it was above what you were taking on the bike, which we'd expect. Your sweat rate's going to go up on the run, but 1.5 liters per hour. And it was possible because you had the flask. And the cool thing about that fluid intake was you also were getting guaranteed carbs. And that pushed you up. I mean, you took in an estimated just over 110 grams an hour with around 750 milligrams of sodium per liter. And as I said, 1.5 liters of fluid total. And I think like it played a massive role in your ability to keep running.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost a shame that we just don't get that in normal Ironmans. And now I'll be thinking of like putting a flexi flask, because like it was only 2 weeks. I think it was like 2 weeks before, maybe even no, I don't think it was a week before. It was like 2 weeks before I ran with a flexi flask for the first time, and I was like, this is a game changer. Like running with a bottle is terrible, but running with this flexi flask, I felt like it was just like really natural. I didn't care it being there. And it's like kind of cooling to your hand too. I can manage ice with my other hand, and yeah, I just found it super. Yeah, I loved it.
Can I ask what brand flexi flask you use? I'm sure everyone's interested.
It was actually Zoot. They had them because they made us. It had, if you put in special needs, every bottle had to be exactly the same. And I did have Z2 ones, but just not enough. And so I had, and it was also good because these flexi flasks were like bright blue, and I could see them on the table from a little ways away. So it just helped managing. Cool.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. And as you said, I mean, look, I'm sure. What's that?
Because you lose them all in the race. So then, like, I didn't come back with any of them.
Someone's picked up these Zoot flasks and they know they're Hollies now. So.
Hopefully.
I think it's like, I'm sure every age group is like, oh my God, I wish we had that. And I'm sure everyone does, because those flasks were also kept on ice for you, weren't they? So they're actually quite cold. And I think it's important for age groupers to understand this, that, yeah, I mean, you get like that type of treatment, you get these ice cold sort of drinks that you can knock down with a guaranteed amount of carbs, guaranteed amount of sodium. It does make it easier. And, you took in that 200 milligrams. So you had, just explain what you did with your caffeine and whatnot in T2. Actually, we didn't cover that.
Yeah. So in T2, I just had, obviously like my watch and everything that I'm grabbing, but my flask, and then I had like a little baggie with a no dose tab and 2 alt red tabs, like just stuck to it. So
and we talked about the alt red. It's not something I would typically recommend as an acute intake, but you've been doing this and you really find it advantageous. Do you want to just how long you've been doing that for, and you find you get a boost from it?
Yeah, quite a few years now. It was a friend of mine that first got me into it. And then, I use it on like hard training days in the middle of bike still. So like, even if it's a placebo at that point, I feel like it helps me. So I'm going to keep going. Yeah.
No, for sure. Look, it's one of those supplements we tend to recommend on a chronic consumption basis and not typically on an acute. I don't think I've seen any studies on acute ingestion, but I'm sure someone will do a study one day and it might show that it's not a placebo effect and has something positive. You had 1 caffeine pill in that baggie, didn't you?
Yeah. So I took that almost away. Yeah, I wish there was more, because then I would be like, because I anticipated not needing it straight away and putting it in my pocket. But yeah, I just took it straight away.
So I think that's a good learning for it, because you got to the back end of the run, I think from 12 or 13 miles, and you were searching for caffeine gels on course, and even you as a pro who are out the front couldn't access any. They didn't have any, did they?
Yeah, I was quite surprised because they were meant to have both the regular and caffeine gels, and I was coming up to them because you're like they say like go shout for what you need, and they'll try and make sure it's ready for you. I'm like white gels, caffeine gels, and yeah, they're like, oh, sorry, we don't have any. I'm like, oh no. So
yeah. So I mean, if the pros didn't have it, then the age groupers certainly didn't. And like I will always say, is carry especially the things that you're unlikely to get on course. And I think like carrying a couple of caffeine gels on you, I think, yeah, again, it's one of those little things, but extra caffeine pill or extra caffeine gel in the back pocket just in case. I think would it make a difference? Maybe. 200 milligrams or 100 milligrams of caffeine at that late phase could make a difference. So your run in Lake Placid was tough. How was the run in Kona?
I mean, I prepared for a tough run. It wasn't as hilly, obviously, as Placid. It was just hot, and you just have these like gradual hills. And yeah, I feel like you just go through waves of it feeling good and it not feeling good and it feeling very lonely. And I had a bit of a panic kind of going out like 13 miles, being like, oh my gosh, I'm not even halfway. It was like a 12 miles or something as you're going into the energy lab, because you've already done that bit in town. And then you just feel like you've got so much to do that I had this like little bit of a panic. And it's just so like, you don't see anyone out there, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, and then like felt good when I got in the energy lab, and then that's it really.
That was great. I mean, you, as I said, most of the photos I saw of you running along, you look pretty happy. I think, did I see a photo you had time to stop and kiss Poppy?
I shook her leg.
Not?
I didn't stop.
Yeah. Okay.
No, I didn't stop. My mom was like holding her, and they said, we're ready. We'll be there. And it was just on like the little out and back when you first are on Ali, which is like, I don't know, 3.5 miles in to the run. And I was like looking at our apartment, like, I don't see them. What the heck? Like, and then they were like just a bit further up in the shade, I think. And my mum was there like holding her. And so, yeah, that was nice to see her twice.
It was very cute. And obviously you got to the finish line. How were those finish line feels? I think Placid, you sat down and cried. This time you didn't sit down and cry this time. You obviously, we've all seen the photos and fantastic. You had a little, it looked like a cry of joy, but you rushed. Yeah. You got to see Sean and Poppy straight away.
Yeah, they're always ready for me at the finish line, which is nice. But yeah, I just feel like it was like just emotional finishing when like it just feels like a lot when you're there, and like just to like actually finish the thing, and like I was just happy with it and like proud of myself for getting to that point. So I think it was all just kind of came at me, which was. It was nice, but I can't look at those photos. They're terrible.
They are not terrible. They're emotional. Like I looked at it and I was sitting. It was actually perfect timing here in Australia. Like the actual event, like it was great. And poor Mel, she's like, "Oh, seriously, do we have to watch this?" Like, and I'm watching it, and then like I was waiting and I was videoing the TV as you crossed, and it was like, oh, it makes you quite emotional seeing your athletes cross the finish line. And I could see that level of happiness and relief, I think, on your face. I saw that Pro Tri News, Kyle and the team, they had some bets running on the first mother to cross the finish line, and you smashed that. So good on those guys for doing that. How now I know we've spoken about this in the past, and being the ultra professional that you are and ensuring that you get all your recovery drinks in and things like that. And we spoke about this. And then I said, Holly, did you get it in? And
no. Normally, Sean's there ready for me with the drink that he makes me like chug down, and I do. But no, I think we just kind of like didn't even think of it going in, because it was like, this is the culmination of the year. Like, yes, I'm going to be sore after, and I don't really care. So the first thing I drank was tons of water and doping control, and then some random quesadilla in the like pro lounge afterwards.
I like it. I said, you know what? At that point in time, it's your world
Yeah,
championship. You know you're
yeah,
going to be sore. You don't have much left. I know you've got a few races coming up, but
yeah, yeah.
it was sort of what you were aiming for. And so I think,
Mhm.
yeah, you can pass on the protein and carbs
Not
straight
thinking of
afterwards.
tomorrow. Yeah.
No, very good. How sore were you after the race?
I mean, I said I was okay, but yeah, I mean, it's an Ironman still. You're like, but yeah, not too bad, really. Yeah. I don't
Everyone's listening to that going, damn you, Holly. um,
know.
it's yeah, if we had to look at that, I mean, you actually, last thing before we get into outcomes, expectations, but you did get drug tested straight away afterwards. And just how long did it take you to actually peak? Because I think that's a good indication of, like, how your
Yeah,
fluid
not
management
long at
was.
all. I downed a bottle of water and um, yeah, I could pee straight away. So I'm always like, is someone ready for me? Because I can go.
Yeah, they're
Um,
probably like, whoa.
yeah.
um, Yeah, it's cool. And I mean, it's great that they're drugs testing. I think that's really good. Do they drug test the top 10 now, or is it just still random?
Yeah, I think I saw most of the top 10 in there. I don't know
That's good.
what they're, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Okay. Before we wrap up, outcome versus expectations.
Um, I mean, you have to kind of like expectations a year before, when I'm like, oh, eventually I'll go to Kona. I think overall I didn't anticipate Ironman being so hard, which I know sounds super stupid and naive of me, which is totally true. Um, it's been very humbling, but it's also like, okay, now I know what's involved, and I've like dealt with stuff this year. I mean, everyone on the start line, I'm sure, has been dealing with stuff. Like, I kind of overcooked myself a little bit going into Placid, then had some struggles, London DNF'd, and like really kind of struggled. So like I've I felt like I was like managing going into Kona. So like even, and I think that's why I was so emotional too on the other finish line, because like I was going into a world championship knowing that this hasn't been anything but perfect. I have been like managing, I'm hanging on here, like, so I'm like, yeah, it was just, I was like proud. And like, obviously, everyone's going through challenges that you just don't even see. And you think, oh, everyone else has had the perfect build. And it's never normally the truth. But yeah, I think I was just proud of that. And like going in, my expectations have been like having a better lead up, not overcooking myself in middle of the year. And obviously, that's not having a sacral fracture and coming, putting yourself on the back burner, starting running in April, May, March, or whatever time it was. So yeah, there was obviously like so much going into it.
Yeah, you take a step back, you listen to everything that yeah, as you say, everyone does have their adversity to overcome, but I think you had some real adversity, and self-inflicted and not self-inflicted and things like that. But it's I think it's a credit, and I think the thing that I take from immediately chatting to you after the race and you going, okay, yep, Kona 2026, bring it. I think that's it. That was super exciting for me to hear, and I'm sure everyone listening is excited about that. And you know, despite the success, I think there's so much room to improve for
Yeah.
next year, and I think that's the exciting thing. It's not like you had the perfect race, the perfect build, or the perfect year, and I think it can only get better. So I'm certainly excited.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was the like motivating, inspiring part, being like, I finished sixth in the world and like I could do this so much better, So like I think it's just like really that's like, okay, I'm excited to see.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, on that note, I think we can finish. But Holly, congratulations, epic, six in the world. Love it, and got a few more races at the end of this year, and then I guess the build starts again, and I think we're looking forward to a big 2026. So more to come.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Holly. We'll chat soon.
Yep.